Hello everybody! Sorry it's been a while. I am recording and working on this video during June, so happy Pride Month everyone, and acknowledgement of Juneteenth. Low-Rank Hunter says trans rights are human rights, cause they are. Today, let's talk about a little subset of 3 mammalian animals in the Monster Hunter series that share this similar body type of this whole fanged beast bear aesthetic. And we'll begin things with, of course, Arzuros. Arzuros was first introduced in the 3rd generation, and my introduction to the monster was Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. I think in terms of combat, Arzuros is a really well-structured early monster for beginners. It has very simple moves, swiping left and right with its heavy claws. It will charge at you, and it does have this nice back move where it will lean back and try to sit on the hunter. I think that's actually a pretty effective move when it comes to teaching hunters that positioning is pretty important. It is a punishing move in terms of you will get hit if you are positioned too far back, right at the monster's butt basically, but it doesn't do too much damage. It's a good teaching skill before you get into the real heavy hitters of the Monster Hunter games. I do like in Monster Hunter Rise, they added this shoulder move where it will really drag its shoulder and bam, hit the hunter way up in the air. That's a nice little touch, as Arzuros really hasn't had a whole lot of changes in terms of the way it attacks in both the 3rd and 4th generation. Some other little aspects I think of note are I do enjoy that it has a pinning attack. Pin attacks I feel like don't show up as often as I would like. I think they're a neat little mechanic, and I really had to learn how to counter them pretty effectively against Savage Joe back in the 4th generation. Arzuros will grab the hunter and shake him, which is kind of a funny little animation, and for a nice additional touch, they will steal honey from the hunter and start eating it as a way to kind of restore some health. I think that's really neat and nice little world building touches. I don't know if this is 100% true, but I think I have seen Arzuros go trying to catch fish in the 3rd or 4th generation games. If that's not true, then I'm just simply misremembering something. But I do like that they do have special little feeding animations for Arzuros as it sits down and uses its front claws to just kind of tear into whatever it's devouring. That's a nice little touch. Design-wise, I think Arzuros is actually pretty cool. I like the different hues of blue and green that are used. At least I kind of see it as a mixture of green and blue. The different patterns on its back are awesome. I do like the white accents of fuzz. They're really nice touches to this design. It's a more colorful and distinct bear, which I find very engaging. The most interesting aspect to me when it comes to Arzuros is its front paws. They have these hard shells on them that kind of act like gauntlets. It really adds an extra believable impact when it swings its front claws at the hunter. I think it's very, very effective. And I like how it's used from time to time in terms of some of the monster's weapons, like the dual blades and the hammer. Really cool touches with this monster. It's an early monster, so it's not super difficult, it's incredibly easy, and it doesn't really utilize any statuses. It's very beginner with not much more note to it than that. But with all that being said, I think it's still a pretty effective beginner monster. Not one of my favorite early monsters that still has to go to the Great Macau, but, when it comes to the Fanged Beasts for an early Fanged Beast, I would say Arzuros is a good solid B. I like it, I respect it, and I do enjoy seeing it when it comes back. It's been most effective for me when playing Monster Hunter Stories 2. It is a pretty decently tanky monster with some nice moves, and with Stories 2 being able to edit its genes to have a lot more flexibility, I think is pretty effective. So yeah, Arzuros is great. I really like it a lot. Let's move on to the Volvidon. Volvidon is the more volcanic-based monster of this trio. It was also introduced in the 3rd generation, and my first exposure to it was also 3U. In fact, all 3 of these monsters, my first exposure to it was in 3U. There is only one attack that Volvidon carries over from Arzuros, and that would be the front leg swinging with its claws kind of situation there. And it does share an attack with Lagombi as well, that whole jumping move. But I think that Volvidon does it in a lot more of an interesting way in comparison to Lagombi to make it still distinct. The other things that you will encounter when taking on a Volvidon is it rolls. It's very much like that of an armadillo and an anteater, and it rolls quite a bit for its attacks, making it fast, and it can do some pretty decent damage. I think it's really cute when it does its roll. It's a great use of design because when you look at the monster, it looks like it would roll, and it looks like a cannonball, which is one of its other big primary moves of jumping in the air, coming down as its own wrecking ball. And it can even do some tremor damage. It's fantastic. It also uses effectiveness with its tongue and its spit. It will spit out a paralysis goo, which, of course, paralyzes upon contact. In fact, unless you have resistance, I think it's an instant paralysis no matter what. And then its tongue is really effective for hitting you from a very far. It's got quite the reach with that tongue. And pulling you in, which makes the hunt quite dynamic. There's a reason why it's usually the last monster you hunt when it comes to these 3. It is the more distinct, difficult hunt in comparison. Not a tough hunt, but there's a lot more you have to be aware of, especially when it comes to that tongue pulling you in. After it has pulled you in, it will then usually follow up with a rolling or cannonball attack. But on top of that, the rolling makes Volvidon a very mobile monster. It's not just fast at going forward, it will also use that rolling for repositioning itself, going sideways or around the hunter, which is pretty cool. I think it's a really neat use of the roll ability, and I'm happy they included it because it also advances that whole idea of knowing how to position yourself with a hunt, while still being a good early medium tier monster to kind of really get you ready for the crazy stuff that will eventually occur, especially when you get into the high rank, late high rank. I like its design. The red shell mixed with some yellow is very vibrant, very eye-catching, and it also has this, the shell looks very strong, and I like the center part of the body where there's these folds. They're still shells, but they look kind of folded in. That makes sense for when it rolls up into a ball. It's a really effective, smart design aspect. I think it looks really neat. The more interesting element to me of terms of status that the Volvidon introduced myself to in the 3rd generation is the nauseous gas. It will release this essentially fart kind of situation, and when you're hit with that, you can't heal at the time. You need to get rid of that gaseous status before you can actually use healing items. And it's okay, I'm not 100% certain as to why Volvidon has it, but it makes it still pretty distinct and interesting. It's a pretty good monster. I'm not as big on Volvidon as I am when it comes to Arzuros and Lagombi. It's my least favorite of the 3, but I don't think it's bad. It's a very dynamic hunt, and I enjoy that aspect of it when it comes to these 3 monsters. But I don't know, it just doesn't... The personality just doesn't vibe with me as much as I would like it to. I still think it's a neat monster, but I think I would have to give this one just kind of like a low B. It's not as great for me as Arzuros. I think Arzuros is a lot better, and I do see the good aspects of Volvidon, but I just don't care much for it. I'm not as indifferent to it to put it in a C tier, though. And lastly, we have Lagombi. Lagombi is my favorite of the 3. It's a large rabbit bear that likes to go sliding on its belly. Once again, they all share that whole swinging with their arms attack. And Lagombi does have its own jump in the air and come pounding down like Volvidon. Volvidon makes it more of like a greater area effect hit, where Lagombi goes butt pound slamming and will kind of roll. And with that roll, it can sometimes even change its position to try to hit the hunter. It's still pretty effective, but the thing that is more distinct to me when it comes to Lagombi is its sliding. It likes to do this whole slide on its belly, going like a torpedo in snow against the hunter. The more interesting aspect of this, for me, is actually when it does like this crazy circle drift with that slide. It can catch a hunter off guard when they're first ever hunting Lagombi and don't know that the monster will use that to kind of like not just knock over a hunter, but also reposition itself. Really neat. Also, Lagombi likes to throw snowballs. It will throw a large snowball or it will throw smaller snowballs. I do like the large snowball aspect where it will throw it and it just kind of grows in snowy terrain as it gets bigger and bigger. It's really neat. I really love the design of Lagombi. I think the white fur is cute. I love its little ears. And I'm really mesmerized, I would say, by the belly. It has this more smooth, scale, leathery pattern to it. And I think that's for, like, conveying the idea of how quickly it can slide across snow on its belly. But on top of that, it's not just like a single palette. It's got unique patterns to it. It has an interesting use of dark blues, grays, and blacks with this yellow stripe. It's really cool. I think it's neat. Lagombi is just a really charming creature to me. I liked seeing it return. I do think it's kind of ridiculous how in Rise they make it like bloodstains of the snow or something like that with its intro. Lagombi is not a vicious monster. It's very docile from what I would say in terms of describing it. But it's very interesting and unique for just kind of being the only rabbit. And I don't know, it charms me a lot. So yeah, I would have to say absolutely 100%. Lagombi is a solid A. Not S, not my absolute favorite, but it is an A tier monster for me. So let's talk about some other aspects here. First off, Lagombi and Arzuros are the only ones to be in the story series, as I don't believe I've ever seen Volvidon. I don't remember seeing Volvidon in Stories 2. Not only is it not in there, but it's never been a monstie either, which is shame. Very shame. I would like to see more monsters become monsties in the future in the Monster Hunter Stories series. Next would be the two deviants. So Lagombi and Arzuros do not have subspecies or rare species as far as I'm aware, but I am familiar a little bit with the deviants. Snow Bear and Lagombi I don't think is all that interesting. It's very much like Lagombi, but it creates a bigger snowball. Granted, I don't hunt the deviants all that often, but just kind of looking at it from a distance and the one time I've hunted it, I don't really get the idea. I really wish they would have kind of done something way more drastic with the monster, as they have like with certain subspecies, such as Barioth and Sand Barioth. Changing up an element is a really great aspect. I do get that the deviants are meant to kind of highlight and over-exaggerate a feature when it comes to Lagombi, but I don't know, maybe also some like mega long ears, or maybe a broken ear would have been interesting. It just, the design doesn't stand out very much to me, which I get it, it's more about the hunt. But you compare that to Crimson Arzuros, and Crimson Arzuros stands out a lot more. The change to red is very noticeable and very eye-catching. It's a very vibrant color. The hunt changes up a lot more, in my opinion. I understand it's just a more harder swing, and its shells can really resist a lot more weapons. But there's just certain small touches, like when the Arzuros does that mega swing, it will like pull up some fish from water or stuff like that. It sticks in my mind a bit more, but at the same time, I'm not really all that interested in the deviants, so I don't care too much for Crimson Arzuros. Anywho, those are my feelings with these bear creatures. Next time, who knows, maybe I'll talk about a weapon, some equipment, or another monster. Anyway, you all take care, and, a lot of support out there to the people who are also doing activism and fighting off a lot of the fascist rhetoric and powers here in the United States. You all take care, and I'll catch you next time.